रहे थे launch करने के लिए.
Auzubillahiminashaitanirrajim. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum and good morning to each and every one of you who's actually tuned into Pakistan TV. Ladies and gentlemen, with World this morning, I happen to be Shahzad Khan, and with me, I'm really lucky that I've been joined by my wonderful colleague, who happens to be Miss Eesha Rehan. We hope and pray that everybody out there is doing wonderfully well and that you're ready to kickstart your day with us. It's a fine Thursday morning over here, but first things first. Hello, Eesha. Assalamu alaikum. How are you feeling today?
Walaikum assalam, Shahzad. I feel absolutely great. This is a brand new edition of World This Morning on Pakistan TV. And yes, we hope that you are going to enjoy all these new changes alongside with us. And speaking of today...
I'm about to ask you, this one question which I do feel is of utmost importance, and that is, how do you feel about the launch of Pakistan TV?
I think it has been an integral step. What the people want is clarity, freedom of speech, and the right facts being delivered to them. There has been a lot of clutter and misinformation in the world. However, Pakistan TV is going to combat this, and a very great welcome and a very great applause to all the people who played an integral role in creating Pakistan TV, the Honorable Prime Minister, and all of the hard-working people who did not just make this established in a matter of weeks, but it was a matter of days in which this was unfolding.
Wow, that's wonderful. And for each and every one of you, what are you in for today on a Thursday morning, ladies and gentlemen? Let's take you through the highlights and what we will be discussing today. So make sure that you stay tuned to Pakistan TV. So in the highlights, first up, Eesha, what is it going to be?
First up, the Honorable Prime Minister Mohammed Shehbaz Sharif, in his visit to Riyadh with the Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman, actually signed a strategic deal. The visit comes with hopes of strengthening bilateral relations. A strategic mutual defense agreement has been signed. It is a shared commitment for both the nations to enhance their security and peace. The agreement states that any act of aggression against either country will be considered as an act of aggression on both.
And it's a great news to come in, and certainly for Pakistan and the Saudi Kingdom, ladies and gentlemen, it's that collaboration. There's been a relationship of 8 or more decades now, alhamdulillah, and for such a deal to kind of come, or these such strategic partnerships to come in the near future will certainly help both the countries. Not just that, but we're speaking about helping each other. I think that that there are a few individuals who've been helping themselves to make sure that they bring back a lot of pride to Pakistan. We will be talking about sports, where how Pakistan has qualified for the Super 4 in Asia Cup 2025 by defeating UAE by 41 runs. And not just that, I think speaking about Pakistan outplayed United Arab Emirates by 41 runs in the 10th match and qualified for the Super 4s of the T20 Asia Cup 2025 in Dubai. We will be clubbing it with how Arshad Nadeem has now actually qualified for the athletics championship. So first 2 failed throws, and then the last one, which goes or crosses the border of 85 meter, it's Arshad Nadeem making sure that he brings a lot of pride to Pakistan.
And that too right after his surgery. He underwent a surgery 2 months ago, and now we've seen him recovering fast and highlighting Pakistan's name as he always does. But moving on to what the regional global politics is revolving around. So when you think about Europe, Shahzad, we always think about it as a land of peace, a land of democracy, and a land of freedom of rights. However, these days there has been growing racism, Islamophobia, and white supremacy. The immigrants and Muslim community are feeling this prejudice against them, and we will be highlighting how the impact is being witnessed.
Exactly, and it's the far-right activist who's been leading the protest, Mr. Robinson, and certainly looks like, because the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom says that we are not going to surrender the UK flag to them. And for all of those protesters who've been out there, ladies and gentlemen, with that, we'll be heading out towards a short break. Don't go anywhere. When you come back, let's dive into the detailed version of all of these highlights. Good morning.
welcome back to all the people who stayed tuned to World this morning. And what we're going to be talking about is the Honorable Prime Minister's historic visit to Saudi Arabia. Pakistan and Saudi Arabia have always had a reaffirming friendship, and it's rooted with deep faith, economic support, and strategic cooperation. On his visit to Riyadh, a strategic agreement was signed. Let's talk about what this deal was about, Shehzad.
Exactly.
Do you think how is it going to protect the security of both nations? As we talked about, an act of aggression conducted against each country will be considered as an act of aggression against both. It highlights how we are coming together as both nations in peace and security. But not just this, the Honorable Prime Minister was given a very warm welcome, a very royal welcome. Shahzad, please highlight.
Exactly, and if you are to speak about that royal welcome, ladies and gentlemen, as soon as the Honorable Prime Minister's aircraft actually entered the Saudi Arabia airspace, he was welcomed by the F-15 fighter jets. And there are visuals of how the Prime Minister actually thanked them in their native language, which is Arabic, and these were the visuals. It was great to see that, to be very honest, and the kind of welcome that has been given. And in addition to this, I think that, when you see your Honorable Prime Minister right at the front of it and making sure that he's leading from the front and the diplomatic ascent that Pakistan has been witnessing as of now, ladies and gentlemen, I think it's about time that we share with you how well the Honorable Prime Minister spoke in Arabic.
شكرا جزيلا for the landing, ATA and Royal Highness the Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman, Prime Minister of Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, and the custodian of the two holy mosques, His Majesty King Salman bin Abdulaziz. Thank you very much. It's very kind of you.
Exactly, and the level of respect, alhamdulillah, both the countries enjoy, alhamdulillah, amidst each other. Not just that, the strategic partnerships, may it be, Saudi Arabia or Pakistan, the relationship, ladies and gentlemen, has been it's been more than 8 decades that Pakistan and Saudi Arabia has been friends together, and inshallah in days to come, that's exactly how it's going to be. But time now to speak about this strategic partnership that, God forbid, if someone attacks on any of the nation, it will be as they have attacked on both. And there will be rebuttals to that. How important it is, how effective it will be, ladies and gentlemen, to speak about it. We're very lucky that we've been joined by the former ambassador, who is Dr. Jamil Khan. Hello, Dr. Saab. Assalamu alaikum. Good morning. How are you feeling today?
Wa alaikum assalam. Sabah al khair. Wa mabruk kullul aqwam al-Islamin. Wa kullul aqwam wal baladul Saudi Arabia wal baladul Pakistan. And a very good morning to your viewer also. It's a very happy occasion that...
Kaifa halik, Doctor? Kaifa halik?
Thank you so much for joining us here today on a brand new edition of World This Morning. And speaking of this historic visit, let's start with the warm welcome, then we'll get into the nitty-gritties of it. He was received by the royal jets of Saudi Arabia, and a warm welcome. The Tower of Riyadh were also highlighted with green flags and lighting. So please let us know more about how this partnership is unfolding with such a warm welcome.
مرحبا مرحبا ولا كل الناس والباكستان بلاد الباكستان مبروك. This was the best of the best agreement which the two countries, brotherly countries, could enter into, and the kind of welcome which was given. It's a royal welcome and very rarely seen, and it's the highest level of the protocol given to any head of state or head of government. And that was demonstrated once our Prime Minister of Pakistan was received. And that shows the kind of respect, that kind of heightened and highest profile which Pakistan could attain after the war with India. That was from 7th to 10th of May. And that projected and propelled the very profile of Pakistan. And as a result, the way the foreign policy was demonstrated at all the platforms, international and national platform, that really translated into the very successful summit of OIC, in terms of Pakistan's statement. And the outcome of the summit could be different, but Pakistan's statement was very strong, and Pakistan had already proposed that there should be a task force. Now, that could not happen during the joint communique, but Saudi Arabia.
Exactly. And Dr. Saab, in addition to this, let's speak about, obviously, it's going to benefit the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia and the Islamic Republic of Pakistan. But how do you think that this strategic mutual defense agreement will have its efficacy and impact on the regional security?
No, indeed, the entire region. In fact, this region, the Gulf region, or in a broader spectrum, this region, Saudi Arabia is at the top so far as the economy is concerned, and Pakistan is at the top so far as its military power is concerned. So two powers: one the economic power, the second one is the military power. The union and the combination of two really changes the dynamics of the entire region. So obviously, it will have its impact. Now, any aggression, not only towards Pakistan and Saudi Arabia, any aggression in the region, and particularly my indication is the Greater Israel, the plan which was shown by no one less than the Prime Minister of Israel. I think that now they'll have to think 10 times in implementing that, because that contained several countries, and a very small piece of Saudi Arabia was included in that map. So now Israel, they know what could be the consequences of any such adventure or any such aggression towards Saudi Arabia. But so far as OIC is concerned, in fact, the Saudi Arabia is the seat of the OIC, and they are the main founder members, including Pakistan, of the OIC. And OIC has in its paragraph 7 the mechanism of the defense. Although they could not implement it, they could not sign the accord or agreement, but Saudi Arabia has taken this initiative, and coming days and coming weeks, we'll find more countries.
Exactly, Dr. Jamil. What I would want to kind of highlight over here is obviously the Honorable Prime Minister was very warmly welcomed. It's the brotherhood in between the Saudi Kingdom and the Islamic Republic of Pakistan. But I would want to bring in those people who've actually played a very impactful role. I would want to bring in, the Army Chief Field Marshal Sayyid Asim Munir, who actually played a key role in this strategic partnership and the success of this agreement, where the Almighty has actually chosen Pakistan as Saudi Arabia's partner for the defense of the holy sites as well. So it's not just a strategic partnership or defense partnership, but Pakistan, alhamdulillah, will be there. Pakistanis or the Pakistan Armed Forces will be there to protect the holy sites. And how important was the role of the Army Chief Field Marshal?
Well, the military diplomacy, in fact, on your channels and other channels, I've been describing how crucial it is. And the Field Marshal, he had a pivotal role in propelling this foreign policy. In fact, military diplomacy is part of the foreign policy, and it augments the traditional diplomacy. So traditional diplomacy, we raised the trajectory of it, but that would not have been possible without military diplomacy. Let me also mention that I have a singular privilege that I have served in Saudi Arabia, and I have also served in UAE, and I am fully cognizant and aware the collaboration and cooperation of Saudi Arabia with Pakistan and Pakistan with Saudi Arabia. We also had, or we still have that defense cooperation 1967 accord what we have with Saudi Arabia, through which we have been assisting Saudi Arabia in 70s and 80s, and we've been sending the troops according to this very agreement. But now this mutual defense agreement, the mutual strategic agreement what we have on the defense, that is the first in this region. As a matter of fact, there are only 5-6 countries who have entered into this kind of the defense agreement, and those are Australia, Philippines, Japan, and 2 more countries. They have entered into this mutual defense agreement with the United States. And now it's for the first time that one of the strongest economy of this region, which is Saudi Arabia, the strongest one, and the strongest army, they have collaborated with each other in defense, mutual defense. And that could not have been possible without the field marshal, as a matter of fact. And I know the psyche and I know the tone and temperament of the rulers and the people of these countries. They definitely rely on their armed forces and they draw their strength. And all the countries, as a matter of fact, they do it. They've been taking pride in the Pakistan armed forces, and Pakistan armed forces, starting from the academy, PMA, Naval Academy, Air Force Academy, we've been in bulk training the people from Saudi Arabia and also some of the other Gulf countries. But now with this agreement, the cards, we have cards, shown the cards to the entire world. What dynamics? I think it's going to create a very positive impact, because if the peace is prevalent, this is what our Prime Minister said, and that's what the purpose of this agreement is, that we will ensure the peace, we'll ensure that how the peace is disturbed. It's disturbed only if aggression takes place, if the sovereign country territory is violated, like it was violated in Qatar.
And thank you so much for highlighting all those integral points. We really enjoyed your breakdown of each and every detailed point. However, speaking of strengthening and bilateral relations and a brotherly bond, let's talk about how our honorable President Asif Ali Zardari is in China right now. He just arrived at the Urumqi district and he was received by the governor and the vice governor. So let's talk about how the bilateral relations between China are being strengthened by this visit. All right. I think maybe our guest cannot hear us. Can you hear us right now?
No. Is this question directed to me? I thought probably you have entered.
Yes, it's for you.
Oh, that's right. In fact, China and Pakistan, best of the best relations, as always. And we've been giving example, sweeter than honey, harder than steel, and deeper than the ocean. So yes, the President Asif Ali Zardari's visit to China, it is a testimony of the upward trajectory of our relation with China. And after this agreement, what we were discussing in your previous segment, it attains even more significance and importance, having our relations with China. So China, in this entire geopolitical landscape, they would also feel very comfortable with this kind of alignment with Pakistan and Saudi Arabia. So far as China is concerned, CPAC-2, implementation of CPAC-2, now I can see that it would gain its momentum. Previously, Field Marshal had also gone there, the Prime Minister had also gone there, and any high-level visits between the two countries, it translates into the implementation of those MOUs and those agreements which are already there. So far as CPAC is concerned, it is not only the economic project, it is a strategic project between the two countries, and which augments further cohesion, cooperation.
Exactly, Dr. Jamil, we certainly get that point, and I think it is very well explained. But very quickly, one last question before we wrap up this segment. Now, imagine that, that we have been talking about how Pakistan is at a diplomatic ascent, and if we are to speak about it, let's speak about Turkey, let's speak about Middle East, particularly, the strategic agreement which came in between Saudi Arabia and Pakistan, and then looking at China, the kind of relationships that we enjoy now. What role do you think from now onwards until the near future will Pakistan be playing within the South Asian region?
The net security provider. In fact, the US had tried, and US and its allies tried India to attain that position in this entire region, but that was detrimental to the safety, detrimental to the interest and the security interest of this region. But now Pakistan entering into this agreement, it gives further confidence to the entire region. And in fact, India ultimately would also be benefited, because yesterday there was a statement I was monitoring by a very senior official of the Saudi Arabia that they will continue having their relations with India. And we don't have any problem with that. Any two sovereign country can have their own relations. But so far as Pakistan is concerned, now with this mutual agreement, I'm coming on what impact would it have with China. This agreement, if Pakistan or India tries to have the adventure like the one they tried last time, Saudi Arabia automatically comes in. And remember, in Saudi Arabia, there are about 3.5 million Indians. They are working, and there's so much of economic interest in Saudi Arabia. So therefore, I think the purpose of this entire agreement was to maintain peace in this region. And let me also give my futuristic analysis that sooner Pakistan would find the right pathway and this region to solve the problem of Kashmir also.
Alhamdulillah. Alhamdulillah, that's great, sir. Thank you so much. And sooner or later, ladies and gentlemen, Alhamdulillah, it's beautiful to see how Pakistan has been making sure that they become a trailblazer within this region, not just that, with strategic partnerships that we continue to grow every single day. Thank you so much, Dr. Jamil, for being in conversation with us. Wonderful to have you. And every time, it's wonderful to look at a very well-dressed gentleman as well. So thank you so much for your time. Very quickly, where you spoke about, Dr. Jamil, actually, Eesha spoke about the misadventure and how India thought that, they could play a role of a hegemon, and that was actually given a befitting reply by the armed forces of the Islamic Republic of Pakistan. And now the world knows where we stand in terms of strategic partnership, may it be diplomatic assent, may it be, I keep on saying that because people now really need to listen to this. Imagine record foreign remittances, current account surplus, our stock exchange breaking all sorts of record. I think the ease of business that people are doing, the exports going up. I think it's all of this, ladies and gentlemen, directs Pakistan into a beautiful direction. But what I would want to kind of club with it, Eesha, is that I need to speak about adventure now. So if I am to speak about adventure, certainly a lot of people get it from sports. And if I'm to speak about sports, the yesterday's game in between Pakistan versus UAE was nothing less than a nail-biting thriller. I mean, it looked like as if the game might slip from our hands for a moment, but then fortunately for our players that they were able to do well. We spoke about it during the highlights as well. So Pakistan was able to defeat UAE by 41 runs. Not a lot of partnerships on top of the order. Unfortunately, the people that we took to open for Pakistan were taking wickets, and the people who were supposed to take wickets, as Shaheen Shah Afridi, were taking wickets and then hitting sixes as well. So a wonderful 29 knock towards the end of the game is something which actually saved Pakistan in the face of losing. It was Fakhar Zaman with a half century. Yes.
All right. Thank you so much for that detailed debrief, Shehzad. However, it's not just cricket fever that's on the rise. It is our global athletes like Arshad Nadeem who have taken this stage, and he has qualified for the World Athletics Championship. We are going to be having a correspondent to talk to us regarding this. And I think we're going to club both of these stories together, talk about all the challenges, the emotions, and the pride of Pakistani sports. We have NATALIA BAQER with us. Thank you so much for joining us, NATALIA.
Thank you so much for joining us. Wonderful to have you. I like the same energy coming back. Hi, NATALIA. How are you doing today?
Hi, Shahzad. I'm doing absolutely great. How are you doing
Absolutely
today?
perfect. Thank you so much for joining us. So, NATALIA, I'm going to get started with the, the removal of the match referee Andy Pycroft first, and then we'll move on towards what Pakistan did right and what Pakistan did wrong. So the match started after a delay of 1 hour. It was because of the fact that the Honorable Chairman of the Pakistan Cricket Board was in a meeting with the former, chairmans, maybe Najam Sethi and maybe the other chairmans as well, joining them. What is your take, first of all, as a sports correspondent for Pakistan TV, and then I'll move on with other questions.
Well, I think that this was a huge disappointment, but what Indian team did was a huge disappointment, because sport is all about being a sports person, having sportsmanship spirit, and if that spirit has been out from the sports, you are actually doing nothing.
True.
Politicizing a game is not what a sportsman should ever do. So when it comes to, Indian team misbehaving and not following the code of conduct and not shaking hands, that was the Pakistan's take on that was absolutely great, absolutely rightful, and they should have not practiced this.
Exactly, and not just that. I think, NATALIA, where you've spoken about it even in the past, we do remember how Usman Khwaja actually came in, protesting for Palestine, and it was banned by the ICC match referees back then. And then how could they actually allow India? So giving somebody, some other sort. So it's basically a discrimination. Not just that. I think I'm going to bring it back to where then Andy Pycroft has actually apologized, to the Pakistan team captain, the Pakistan team, the managers and everyone. Do you think that, that this protest that Pakistan team did, that we might not even participate in Asia Cup any further, was something on point, or do you think Pakistan's stance should have been a little different?
No, I think it wasn't. It shouldn't be ever different. It was, again, how I mentioned before that the sport is all about, keeping it aside from the politics, from the cross-border tensions, from everything. It's just the sport.
Yep.
And I'm going to stop you there, Natalia, because we saw how the Indian cricket team actually used politically charged pettiness against the Pakistani team, right? By not conducting the handshakes, which led to this whole debacle being unfolded. So what are your opinions about politics in sports and just pettiness in sports?
When it comes to Pakistan and India, that's the biggest clash ever. Why most of the people watch cricket is because of Pakistan-India clash. And it's not that the audience is only in Pakistan or the cross-border, but around the world, people are crazy about Pakistan versus India, and it is because of the sports clash. It is about the cricket. It's not about the politics. It's not about what's happening cross-border, So when it comes to cricket, you must keep things aside and play the game. And, my opinion on this is that they have actually what the scores were to do be done, the players and other things, that's something which comes afterwards.
Exactly.
How Pakistanis played, that comes afterwards. But how the Indian team reacted and how they tried to politicize the match on the pitch, that was something very disappointing.
And we certainly
disturbing.
condemn that, and ICC really needs to kind of make sure that they take strict action, or in near future, such actions should really not be allowed onto the pitch or within the cricket grounds, because grounds, ladies and gentlemen, are to unite, not to divide. Very quickly now, let's come down towards how they played. Now, imagine that, that we have struggled so much that it looked like as if United Arab Emirates team is actually going to probably not allow us to qualify for the Super Four. The top order has been miserably failing. Saim has not scored in a single game. He's been going out in ducks. And if I'm to speak about ducks, the most ducks in 2025 is with Pakistan. And number 2 is Bangladesh, which is 11. Pakistan is somewhat around 20 or 21 decks. Yes. So, I mean, that's not where we would want to lead. But what would you want to say?
Absolutely disappointing. The whole game. There's no middle order. Where's the middle order? There's no middle order. The opener comes and goes like in a split second. You see the opener and the opener is gone. So there's no middle order. And again, what I blame is the team selection maybe. There were no big game names playing in this game. And by big names, I don't mean people who are famous players, who are famous people who could withhold the pressure and could be stable on the pitch. Because when it comes to India versus Pakistan, we usually see that Pakistani team has that problem of, losing confidence when wickets go very fast. So when we start to fall, and then we see our players losing confidence, and then we eventually lose the game and the wickets too. So what we need to do was that there should be some players who could just, get stable scores on the pitch.
Probably rotate the pitch, play a run a ball, make sure that
or maybe just stand for a while.
Or rotating the strike, and these are exactly
I think
the things
Natalia
and
and
skills that we
Shahzad
need.
have all the right facts to actually help improve the team. However, let's jump from sports to actually athletics and how Arshad Nadeem has qualified for the championship of the National Sports Athletics program. And talking about this, right? So he actually recovered from surgery 2 months ago, just 2 months ago, and now he has actually qualified for this. How did he do it?
Now, coming to Arshad Nadeem, we're talking about cricket, the most disappointing sport right now in Pakistan.
Don't say that. Come on.
Come on.
Yeah. Let's have some hope.
Of course, we have hope.
Yeah.
We are very hopeful, and we know that our team is going to make a good comeback, and we're waiting for that. But then comes Arshad Nadeem, a great sportsman, a great person, a person who actually has done a lot of hard work. And of course, he's a big name for Pakistan now, because the 92.78 meters he had thrown in that Olympics, and that was a world record in itself. And now we are again expecting a big result from today's
Exactly, and
throw.
we certainly want to wish best of luck to him as well.
Yes.
Thank you so much, Natalia, for being with us. Lovely to be in conversation with you. For each and every individual who's out there, ladies and gentlemen, right at the beginning, we'll take it from the top, where we did speak about, how the far-right activists have been out there and making sure that they protested just because of the fact that they want, white supremacy. Not just that, there's Islamophobia, and they have started to blame Islam for every other problem which actually still exists within their communities. We will be speaking about it. We'll be talking to somebody back home in the United Kingdom. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right morning. right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. Thank you so much for staying with us. Now, imagine, sorry, where we were talking about, we will be speaking about the protests within the United Kingdom. There are a few things that I would want to discuss prior to that. Now, there's a segment that we will be introducing in days to come on Pakistan TV that will be about artificial intelligence and how artificial intelligence is actually taking over the world, making sure that everybody's in place. So imagine that Albania, ladies and gentlemen, Prime Minister Edi Rama has made an AI-generated minister in charge of tackling corruption in his new cabinet. That's a wonderful idea.
Exactly.
Rama introduced Diala, which means son in Albanian, member of the cabinet who is not present physically, but will ensure that public tenders will be 100% free of corruption. Lawmakers will soon vote on Rama's new cabinet because it's unclear whether he would ask for a vote or not. Legal experts, meanwhile, believe more work may be needed to establish the official status.
All right, thank you so much for highlighting that, Shahzad. And before this, we were talking about how there have been recent developments in the United Kingdom. And speaking of this, President Donald Trump has visited the United Kingdom and he got a red carpet welcome to the country. He was greeted by King Charles at King Charles III at the Windsor Castle before he got into trade talks with Prime Minister Keir Starmer. And speaking about the UK right now, so there have been a lot of things unfolding. You can see President Trump riding in the carriages, welcomed by such a marvelous welcome, and the King's men and their horses, and you can see the vibrant welcome, how such a gracious and honorable welcome was conducted for him. However, speaking about the topic that we were discussing, there have been a lot of tensions in the United Kingdom. So white supremacy is on the rise, and white supremacy is the main agenda, which pushes the idea that white people are more superior to other races, they need more rights, they need more superiority, and the right-wing agenda where nationalism is supported and not a lot of liberalism is acknowledged. And speaking of this, right, we have seen how the riots and uprisings in the US are causing a lot of harm and distress to not just the Muslim communities, but to all minority communities. And to speak regarding this issue, we actually have with us a lawyer who actually loves to write opinionated columns. She happens to be IJAZ Khan. Thank you so much, Aisha, for joining us today.
Exactly, which is why I think what we need to do is that pose our questions.
Let's pose our questions to Aisha. So, Aisha, can you walk us through what is exactly the Unite the Kingdom movement, who initiated this, and what is the main purpose of this movement?
Yeah, sure. So I think the short answer to that would be that it started, to just give your viewers a bit of a background, there's a person called Tommy Robinson here who belongs to the far right. And he is a convicted criminal, actually. He's been in jail before, but he was let out. And he has a huge following because sometimes people who go to jail are popular, and he is also popular, but he represents a view of Britain which is pretty exclusive, which doesn't believe in including, ethnic minorities or even women. And it has a very kind of a white supremacist attitude towards Britain. So he was leading the march, and he was supported by Elon Musk, who is the leader of X. That's the short answer to that question. But of course, there's a lot of background that one could talk about.
Exactly. And where you actually spoke about Robinson, now imagine that around 110,000 to 150,000 people joined the march organized by Robinson. And initially it was about immigration policies and free speech. Yet, how do you think it slipped to Indo-racism, Islamophobia and white supremacy? Why are figures like Elon Musk supporting Robinson?
Yeah, okay, immigration, yes. Immigration is part of it. I think free speech is the cover that they like to give all of this, but I don't think it has much to do with free speech. What it has to do with, I think, is like changing realities with the society in Britain. So I would like to highlight maybe 3 different aspects which resulted in this large march. By the way, I would like to say that although the march had between 110 and 150,000, as you accurately described, there have been marches, pro-Palestine marches, practically every Saturday in London, which had numbers far greater than this, but got less media coverage. So people think this was bigger than those, but it wasn't actually the case. Those marches were actually bigger than this one. But this one is relevant because it was still large and it was violent. It turned into violence. So whenever something like that happens, of course, there is media attention, and whenever there's controversy, there is media attention as well. But to just highlight the three reasons why I think this march happened when it did and why it was as big as it was. So first of all, I think that in the West in general, specifically in the UK and also in the US, democracy is kind of dying. I think democracy in its heyday and it's on the decline. So in both places, the society at large has become very polarized. And when you have a very polarized environment, it becomes very hard for democracy to survive. Because for democracy to survive, you have to be willing to work with the other side. You have to be willing to consider what the other people say. We are living in an environment where one side thinks the other is useless and evil, you know, when it becomes between good and evil, so to speak, and you cannot work together. And once you cannot work together, I think the foundation for democracy has already eroded. So that's one reason. The second reason is that the white population in these countries is looking at these changed demographics where they feel, and the statistics attest to it, that they will become a minority in, let's say, 10 to 20 years' time. So they are obviously used to being a majority, and they consider this their kind of indigenous homeland. This is very troubling for many people, particularly at a time when the economic situation is not so great.
All right, thank you so much, Aisha, for highlighting that. And what's actually shocking is that Europe always champions itself as a champion of human rights and leadership and diplomacy. But now we can see the tables turning. Now it is the Europeans who are feeling that their culture is actually more superior to others. So what do you have to say about that?
Yeah, I think that's a good question. So yes, Europe and the US have historically given the impression that they stand for democracy and human rights. And I think what happened maybe in the last, let's say 100 years or 80 years since World War II, when, you know, a lot of countries gained independence, including Pakistan, and we looked to them for models of democracy. And the attitude up until now was that within the borders and within the confines of Europe or the US, there was, you know, rule of law, there was democracy, there was free speech, much more so than in other places. But now all that, even within the borders, I mean, they never really believed in human rights or democracy abroad. If you look at the history, I mean, the US has been responsible for several coups that have taken place in South America, for instance. Or they have partnered very well with monarchies in the Middle East to supply their oil reserves. And you know, so their history abroad is more one of opportunism when it comes to foreign policy. It's not always dedicated to rights or democracy. That's if it doesn't suit them, they will not. But now the irony is, or maybe the logical conclusion of that policy is, that even within the confines of their own borders, those things are no longer. So, for example, today, I'm sure you're aware that Donald Trump is visiting the United Kingdom. And they have this plan for him in Windsor Castle. They didn't want to risk doing it in the city because of the possibility of protests and all of that. So on the walls of Windsor Castle, some people had beamed photos of Donald Trump and Prince Andrew with Jeffrey Epstein. And you know, this is a big scandal here right now. So the people who did that, they found out who those 4 people were and they arrested them. So, I mean, the idea of free speech is obviously already being eroded. And the same thing is happening in the United States. You see people, you know, university students who are speaking up for Palestine being rounded up and taken to prison and so on. So I think what I'm trying to tell you is and your viewers is that all those democratic freedoms that historically people in Pakistan and other developing countries thought that the West is the bastion of these freedoms, those freedoms are all slowly being eroded and they're in decline.
Exactly. And thank you so much for saying that. Now, imagine I come to, or we will come to the Donald Trump part as well. But let's first talk about, how a lot of protesters over there said that, that all of these immigrants are actually tainting, the rich culture and history of Britain. Now, imagine that it is so ironic that if we are to speak about Britain and certainly Europe, where how colonialism in Asia and Africa has lasted, or probably given some scars which has lasted forever. What's your take on that?
Cultures.
Yeah, that's part of it. I mean, that's not all of it, but that is part of it. As I mentioned, when the white community, as long as they were in the majority, I guess they didn't feel as threatened, or the people who did feel threatened were in a minority. But now that they're seeing the demographic changes of them potentially becoming a minority in the next, let's say, 10 to 20 years, as I mentioned, yes, it is a bit of a culture war going on as well. And yes, religion is always part of it. I mean, as much as we say that these countries are secular, and they are to some extent, I mean, to more of an extent than, let's say, a country like Pakistan is, but you can never completely divorce religion from society or from politics. So it still plays a bit of a role, So although I would say that I think, yes, there's some of the dynamics are more internal, because over the last few years, the importance of religion has kind of declined as well in the Western society. So maybe there is an internal rethink in some capacity, at least with MAGA in, the Make America Great Again in the US. And I know your subject may be the UK, but I kind of have to touch upon the US because I think the two countries are very closely connected, and what happens in America definitely reverberates in the United Kingdom and maybe across Europe. In fact, a lot of people right now are saying that European politics hinges upon who supports and who opposes Donald Trump. And that has become the key political defining factor of where you stand politically, instead of, other things that should be more important domestically, for instance.
All right, thank you so much, Aisha, for highlighting all several facts. Earlier, we touched on how the President Donald Trump is visiting the United Kingdom. So what do you think this meeting is going to unfold? Is it going to be just about trade and energy, or is it going to be about greater political agendas? Please unfold this for us. Technical tensions
within the connection, because imagine that when we reach out to the United Kingdom, it actually becomes difficult. Aisha, can you hear us? Did you hear the question?
So I think the most important subject of conversation would probably be the tariffs, the trade deal between the United Kingdom and the United States, because Donald Trump has imposed tariffs on different levels of tariffs on various countries, depending on how close he feels they are to the US, or how cooperative they are with the US, perhaps. So Britain, of course, has always been quite cooperative with the US, but they're hoping to extract a good trade deal out of this, because as I mentioned again earlier, that the economy in the UK is not that great. And so the trade deal with the US is quite important. I'm pretty sure that the other subject of conversation would be Israel, because that is the other big thing that they have in common. I mean, their support for Israel, despite the fact that in both countries, particularly in the UK, but also in the US, I think public opinion is turning very much against Israel. But there's a huge disconnect between how the governments are behaving and what the people want of them. So I'm sure those are the two big things that they will be talking about.
Exactly. And one last thing, Aisha, and that is that, I would certainly want to speak about, the sentiments of the Muslims and the immigrants community within London. What do they think about these protests? Is there intimidation? Is there fear? Or do you think that it's just going to get worse for them?
Well, I think people are scared and concerned, not only Muslims, but also anybody who's like dark-skinned or, brown or black, like regardless of whether you're Indian, Hindu, or Muslim, or, coming from Africa and still a Christian. I mean, everybody is concerned, because when a white supremacist movement doesn't want to treat any of those people as equals, and maybe wants all of those people out of the country. The problem is, though, that the communities are so large now that you cannot just expel them. And so you have to find a way of learning to live with each other. And in the meantime, I mean, of course, there are people like Elon Musk who are taking advantage of the situation and are blatantly even saying that they want to see civil war in UK.
Oh my God.
Yes, that he has stated that as an aim. And so there is a lot of conversation both in the United States and in the UK that you could potentially see civil war in these countries. And that is very scary, not only for the Muslims, but for everybody who lives.
Thank you so much, Aisha,
you
for
so
your
much.
time. You know, you have been a political expert, you know, and a legal expert as well. Thank you so much for your time, and thank you so much for shedding light onto how the situation is building up with the far-right protests which are going on in the United Kingdom at this point of time. But for everybody who's out there, ladies and gentlemen, we'll see you tomorrow. Look after yourselves. Stay tuned to Pakistan TV. Until next time, it's a good morning. Have a good day.